Hey Joel, how are you?
See, there we go. All right. And here's my dog. One of two. Three. Jeez. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the students at Loyola. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for having
So, before we begin, I just want to provide some context to you, Joel, and to everyone else for you know, before our conversation with the amazing Joel McHale. Um, our interview will only run about 30 minutes with 20 to 25 minutes focused on questions mostly submitted by the students at Loyola. I aggregated the ones that were most common. They kind of fit a timeline of your career, Joel, but they might be a little disjointed. So you mentioned having a knack for being able to handle the abstract and all over the place, so I might have to lean on that during this interview. Afterwards, we'll open up the discussion.
you. Yes, I have a knack for the abstract. Thank you for thinking that. It's very kind of you.
And then after those discussions, we'll open it up to 5 to 10 minutes, if you don't mind, to take questions from our broader community. So I'm sure most people are familiar with Joel's incredible body of work, but I'd like to start with a brief introduction. Joel McHale is an actor, comedian, and television host celebrated for his sharp wit and unforgettable roles in both TV and film. He first gained widespread recognition as the host of The Soup, where he hilariously commented on reality TV and pop culture. He solidified his place in comedy with his role as Jeff Winger on the critically acclaimed series Community and Animal Control. Beyond television, Joel has appeared in films like The Informant, Ted, The Happy Time Murders, and Spy Kids all the time in the world. Which, by the way, I got to work on the video game, and I spent 2 weeks looking at you and Jessica Alba photos of your heads and trying to recreate it in 3D. So that's why I wanted to include that in my monologue.
They never sent me a copy. I'm going to find that.
If you still have a Wii around, if not, I'll send you a Wii and the game itself.
Great.
It,
Jeez.
yeah. Off screen, he's a dedicated family man and an advocate for numerous charitable causes. Once again, thank you, Joel, for joining us today. You rock.
Wow. Thanks. That was very wonderfully embarrassing, but nice to hear.
Well, I mean, the hard part is when I was researching your career for that monologue, you have over 365 IMDb credits. So I was like, what do I even put in there? I mean, you're like one of the most prolific actors today.
Yes, it really shows a sense of dedication and extreme desperation. Yeah, I still
um,
can't believe that people pay me to act. So I take every opportunity I can, and I'm gonna run with the ball until the real real job police show up.
well, one of the students does have a question about that later on, so I'm going to circle back to that comment.
Great.
So let's start with your superhero origin story, and I don't mean your role as Starman from Stargirl.
Okay.
Where were you born?
I was born in Rome, Italy. Thank you, European guys. Yep, very good for parties. I can bring that up, and it's a little. I got baptized at the Vatican, and that's no joke. I got pictures to prove it, and my dad and mom met at Loyola University Rome Center, guys. So that is bringing it all the way back. That was in 1894. So that's going way back. But then we moved to Seattle and moved to New Jersey very briefly, and then moved back to Seattle, and that's where I grew up. And before it was cool, and then we became cool, which was really cool.
It is really cool. I mean, is your father? I saw in one of the shows too that you have family in Skokie, Illinois, and is your father from Chicago?
My dad is from Chicago. He grew up on Costner Street across from the Schwinn factory, which I think has been out of business for quite a while, but I think the building is still there. Yeah, I got cousins everywhere. They're a bunch of Irish drunks. So, they were very prolific. And I have 27 first cousins on that side, and it's a lot. So they're spread out from Lake Geneva all the way down to Decatur. So they're everywhere. And then my mom's side is mostly Europe and Africa.
Yeah, if you ever come into town and visit them, we'd love to give you a tour, like of the campus. And I don't know how often you come out to Illinois. I know you did a couple, like a film here too, The Informant.
Yeah, we actually did that in Decatur. The Bear shoots in Chicago. I've actually been to Loyola to do stand up, I guess, 15 years ago before you guys were around there. But yeah, I've been to that campus a couple times because of my parents. And so anyway, yeah. So yes, I'll the next time I'm there, I expect the red carpet.
Yeah, we have an incredible film and theater program. Because you have your MFA, and I'm kind of doing this out of order. And whenever you decide to take a break from acting, I will 100% close the lineage gap between you and your dad and help you get a gig here.
Oh, great. Great. Oh, yes, that'll help the program. Jeez.
um, when did acting first come into your life?
I did a play in Haddonfield, New Jersey when I was a first grader or transitional first grader. They had this weird grade between kindergarten and first. If you weren't really showing much aptitude, you got kind of a warm up year. And so it was a play based on the ride It's a Small World at Disneyland. Yes, they were already infiltrating our souls, and there was all these different parts, and I did a lot of miming, and my parents said I got up there and had the time of my life, and that's when I was afflicted or infected with the disease of wanting to be on stage, which is a two two-edged sword because if you can't do it, you're tortured, and if you do it, you're also tortured in the best way. But that's when it started, and then I started doing plays in seventh grade, and I was only good at sports and plays, and wanted to be on TV. I was terrible at school, so terrible, just terrible. Dyslexia and ADHD and all that tip stuff that before dyslexia and ADHD were kind of compensated for. They just considered you slow, which or really too fast. So that's going way back in the 70s before, when the diagnoses were not there yet. But that's kind of how it started. And I just started doing tons of stage work, and I did a lot of theater in Seattle, and then wanted to be on TV and wanted to be in movies. That's really all I ever wanted to do. And I always kind of like, well, I'm going to give this a go until I can't do it. And so then I dragged my poor wife into it, and she's been here, and we've been here in LA for 25 years. Unbelievable. I can't believe
No, I
I.
mean do you mind if I unpack some of that?
Yeah, good luck.
Well, a lot of the questions I was getting from students deal a lot with things like, they struggle with dyslexia, they struggle with these things, and
Yeah.
um, well, I'll kind of hammer through their questions. Like, if I can take you back in time, you attended both undergrad and grad at the University of Washington, correct?
Yeah. Uh, yeah. No, I got into the University of Washington when you didn't when it was not hard. I had a combined SAT of 850. Let that sink in. My grade average was like 3.3 because I cheated on everything because I couldn't do any of the work. But that was great. And I did not do theater then, or I did theater, but I majored in history. Uh, then I was on a local sketch comedy show in Seattle that was also on TV, which started the careers of people like Bill Nye the Science Guy. And I did that for a few years, but I was kind of like, I know I got to be a better actor, so I better go to school. And so I left that show and applied, and I was rejected everywhere except for the University of Washington. And so that was, getting my MFA it was a lot of work, but it was really good. I mean, it was just lots and lots of acting, which is what I needed. So I needed to kind of train and train and train, and that was very very helpful. And I to this day I look upon Hutchinson Hall with great affection.
Was the show, I didn't know it was in that order, but was the show you were on Almost Alive for Comedy Central?
It was locally produced to the NBC affiliate, which was very rare. It's still, I don't think it's ever happened it was a locally produced show that Comedy Central picked up for a few years and then stopped airing, but we still kept going. So it was on for about 15 years. I was there for 4 of those years. And I just had a reunion with all those guys. And anyway, but yes, that was the order. And then went to LA in 2000 before you kids were born.
There was two quick observations. One, I have a student who I just caught cheating, so he's going to be really excited to hear that he's going to be famous and have an amazing career despite cheating.
Caught cheating, do it in drama, in performance.
No, no. So I teach. I think your agent, or when I was speaking to Kara, I teach in both the film program as well as game studies, and so it's something else. It's a different type of class. I'm all over the board as a professor. So
Okay.
but and the other observation is it's rare that people will like get their kind of break and then they return to school, and that kind of uh, fuels sort of like my next two questions. And one is, do you feel that taking acting classes is essential? And you kind of answered this already, but to becoming a successful actor, or can someone break into the industry without formal training?
Yeah, but it is an odd career where it I would say if it's me, definitely I needed to take lots of classes and be in plays. I think being in shows on for me, being in stage on shows in front of audiences was very formative. And then so because there's really crappy acting teachers, and then there's really great acting teachers, and you just have to find them because it's not like learning becoming a lawyer or a plumber where you have to have standards. Anybody can do it, but then you can really tell the difference between uh, people that are good and that are not good. It's pretty evident. And then I just kind of moved towards the people that were good. But I would say for me, yes, it was very necessary to train and get. I think it's like a sport for me. What is just it's practicing your sport, and then when you get in the game, you're ready. And so that for lack of a better analogy, so that's and then once you start doing it a lot, you get better at it, thank God. And I think it's a life, it's a thing that you have to do all the time. Or I because and I that's all I ever was trying to do. And then there was a flip in my life where the effort to make it happen all of a sudden flipped with actually doing it, and I got to be doing it more than I was just trying to do it. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's working, when I was doing the soup and community at the same time. And so anyway, it's a very long answer. So I would say yes, training is really important. But and it's getting that. But then when you're in the game, then when you're on stage performing or on camera performing, then you're ready. That's my very long answer, and that's all the time I have. Thank you so much, guys. Oh, anyway, that's the long answer.
No, I think it's good. I mean, like chronologically, like it makes a lot of sense. And like I have a lot of students who they graduate, they have this portfolio, whether it's they have a website with all their acting stuff or comedy. They do Second City, and then they go out and they go out for these auditions, right? And after facing a few rejections, they often feel discouraged and they give up on their dreams of becoming artists or actors. Did you ever think about quitting, and what advice would you give them?
No, I never thought about that. I had an acting teacher, this Japanese acting teacher, who was like, "We have to approach this." He literally said, "Approach it like a Japanese general in World War II." And I was like, "Where's this going?" And then he said, "It's either success or suicide." And I was like, "Wow, okay, that's quite the analogy." But in the that there's he was basically like, "There's no you have if you're gonna do this, there's one choice, but to do it." Uh and I agreed with that wholeheartedly. And I would also say I agree. I have a lot of friends that kind of came to LA. They got rejected a few times, or it wasn't really going well, and they left. Uh, and for some reasons that were totally like, this actually wasn't for me or whatever. Um, but you have to, uh, if you're gonna if you're gonna show up, you got to show up. That's half the battle, is just showing up and participating. So that's one thing. So that's what I've learned. It was just like, if you're just here and you get here and you do it, then you're already halfway there. And I really do think people in that, everyone gets a shot. Every casting director is looking for that person, and you are the answer to those prayers. And I've been rejected so many times, but if it I think Michael Keaton put it where he was like, you can't, he was like, once I stopped looking at auditions as trying to please someone and get it right and hoping I get it and just looking at it as a way to work and as a work session. He's like, then I stopped being nervous. And then all of a sudden I started booking things because I wasn't looking at it as a way to go, well, I hope I did this right. I hope I did it perfect and maybe I'll get it. He just kind of like, well, we'll see, because there's so many other factors involved. And then this is very long answer. When Harrison Ford got his Lifetime Achievement Golden Globe a few years ago, he was like, yeah, I guess I was a pretty good actor, but everyone else left. And I was just the only one who didn't. And I think that's why I started getting parts. And there's some truth to that. Obviously, he is a generational talent, but he was like, everyone else left. I was just still here. And I was like, that's it. Just keep showing up.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I remember seeing an Inside the Actor Studio, and they said if you're an actor and you can't handle rejection, like you start your career, you're rejected for roles. You get in your career, you're being rejected by critics, and then as you get older, you're rejected by family for the roles you pick. I just thought that was a great. As an
Mhm.
artist myself who puts out video games and gets poor reviews or not, especially the stuff we're working on for Netflix now, it's um, how did you
Yeah.
land your role as the host of The Soup, and what was the audition process like?
Going way back, I did not have an agent for that sort of role, for that sort of thing. I had a commercial agent because I could not actually get an agent, or what's called legit, which it's unfair to even. They're like legit and then a commercial agent, which I think is totally unfair because it makes it sound like commercial agents aren't as valuable, because they are extremely valuable. And so I was booking commercials. I could not get auditions for the roles that I couldn't get auditions for television roles or anything or movie roles. And this one woman named Annie Roberts, who just retired from E as their casting director, she would watch commercials and look at actors that were in those and go, "Oh, that guy, I'm going to bring that guy in, and he can comment on." They used to have these specials where it was like 101 celebrity oops, and then they would show a clip, and then they would just have a like it was like Best Week Ever on VH1. And so I would get on those shows and make a couple of jokes, and then the soup opportunity came up. Oh, there goes my dog. The soup opportunity came up. It wasn't like we're bringing back Talk Soup. Talk Soup had been canceled a few years before. It was just like we're doing a clip show. And I was like, great. And they put me on tape 5 minutes with a couple of clips, and like it wasn't like that's the one other thing about big thing about Hollywood. It is high school with money. And most executives and producers barely know what they're doing, and that's a pretty big insult to them. Some really do, but anyway, the process took forever because it wasn't a big priority at E. And then eventually they were like, "Oh, all right, well, let's do the show, and it's so inexpensive, and we'll put it on Friday nights." And that's kind of how it started. And nobody watched for an entire year, which was great for me because I'm, again, dyslexic, and that allowed me to learn how to read the teleprompter without going into a blind panic every time. That's kind of how that came together. It was a very slow process. It was not glamorous in any sense. It was kind of it was great because it was this. I was eased into being on television, and then all of a sudden we know that people started, like there was a lot of comments about it, and that was crazy. It was great. I'm very good at long explanations, so try and stay awake, kids.
I think those are perfect, and I think there's a heightened sense of anxiety with a lot of the students, and I think the things you're saying like resonate very very well with them, and so like I appreciate like all of this in depth, and I mean it actually feeds into like you brought up dyslexia again. Many of my students have academic struggles, just like the ones that you're sort of talking about, and they see them as roadblocks, and it's roadblocks to like accelerating their career or getting in. And as you mentioned, like somebody with dyslexia, how did you overcome your challenges? How did it affect your ability to handle script reading or working with tools like a teleprompter?
Oh, well, I've never gotten great at it. Uh you never overcome dyslexia, but you can your brain figures out ways to make other pathways to get understanding. And now I people are like it's an advantage, and I get that, and I like that, and I would say that I do see things differently. I mean, I went into acting, so I must. So I started, instead of being embarrassed by it and being shameful of it, I started steering into it. And every time I'd fuck up the script, I'd be like, well, I'm dyslexic, guys. So should I go back and get that punchline? And sometimes I would, and sometimes I wouldn't. Then we started doing the shows live. And I started advertising that I had dyslexia and that it was probably not going to go how I plan. So that really helped to kind of empower myself to kind of expose it. And that, yeah, so to this day, like last year when Ken and I did the Emmys, we had all these jokes set out, but we knew our lines backwards and forwards because we knew it was live TV, and we knew we had 40 seconds to get all, to walk out there on stage and be like, this is all the time we get. Don't screw it up. And of course, we screwed it up, and that was good. It was actually a happy accident. And it all, so you have to go, so that's a very long answer to say you never overcome it. You just use it as like your, the drunk friend who, when they come out at night, they're the fun ones, but you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's it's a good transition, especially since I hear some stories from my students about the reason why they come late in the morning, and it kind of relates to the drunk friend. So
Mm.
I'm gonna I'm gonna transition a little bit into the question. That's sort of how did you make the transition from TV to roles like you played a banker in 2004, Spider-Man 2 with Sam Raimi? Like, how did you make that transition? And then when you're on set with somebody like Sam Raimi, like, what is that like? I know that's a pretty loaded question, but
Well, I got that role because my friend Jason Burns, who was at the time my manager, and I put that in quotes because he was an assistant to a big manager, and he kind of was like, I'll start sending you out. We were high school friends and had done a TV show in high school that we produced in high school. And however it happened, he's like, you're not going to believe this, but I got you an audition for Spider-Man 2. And I was like, amazing. So, and I think the casting director had seen like some Burger King ads I was in, and I am not kidding. And I just improvised in this audition, and then yeah, it was one of those ones where it was not a big process. They went, yeah, you got it, and I was like, huh? And yeah, at the time I was, yes, auditioning for commercials, still had no agent, still didn't get an agent after Spider-Man 2. And the soup was just coming out as that was coming out. And then, you're on I get there, and I've never been on a gigantic set with, there's Tobey Maguire and Rosemary Harris. And I just made sure I knew my lines backwards and forwards, and was also trying to get laughs at the same time. And Sam Raimi, there's a reason why Sam Raimi is Sam Raimi, is because he is a generational talent, and he makes you feel like the spotlight's just on you. And while all this crazy Doc Ock, all that stuff is happening, stunts, and he's like, oh, that was really great, good, let's do it again. And then we did it again. He's like, thanks. And then he sent me a note, and I was like, this is great. And then that was the end of that. I was so nervous. I really did not sleep the night before, truly. And but it ended up being just so much fun, and that was it was quite the introduction to a big set. And yeah, and I've seen him since, and he's always been so kind and so great. And if you want to read a great book, read Bruce Campbell's If Chins Could Kill. Bruce Campbell was in all the Evil Dead movies that Sam Raimi did, and it's a great book about being a working actor. So that's yeah, that was 2004, guys, before you were born.
We only have about 4 minutes.
Not you, Alex. You're much older than
Yeah,
all
we're
those
about
people.
the same age, but I was hoping that it wouldn't show through the camera.
It's the background that really freaks me
Yeah,
out. Whenever I have a fuzzy background, I'm like, what is he hiding?
yeah, a dirty office.
Hey.
I don't have your office is pretty beautiful actually. I like the
Oh,
bookshelf. Look at all
thank you
these
so
cool
much.
books and Dante's Inferno and
Here's
oh, nice.
here's yeah. Oh, here's the first iPod, guys. First ever.
What is that archaic
2000.
device? What is
Look at
Prius?
that.
Okay.
I keep it as I don't have the Firewire anymore, but there's a couple of songs I want to rip off there.
Um, I'm gonna open it up to the students, and if there's a little bit of time left, I have a selfish question. Ethan, go ahead.
More selfish than the other ones. Okay.
Hi, Joel. My name's Ethan. I just had a quick question about like I have loved your show Community for a very long time. I just wanted to have your opinion on this kind of revisionist censorship of certain episodes, like looking back at art and history, how episodes like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons from season 2 are no longer available for streaming because of some jokes that are seen as not PC by today's standards. Do you think that going back and removing some of the more outrageous and possibly offensive jokes is the right way to go about looking at art in the past?
Well, I think that that particular case of that Dungeons and Dragons was wrong to remove it, and that was Netflix, and nobody else removed it. So that was just them, and you can get it on that. Well, I don't think you can stream it now. I think it's all gone over to Peacock because they have the rights to it now. But at the time, everybody had it. I think you could still buy it on Apple. But that's and then our both Yvette and Donald were like, "This is not that for that episode." They were like, "This is not blackface." What in this particular episode, and so I think you have to go by it case by case, and some of them like what is like the jazz singer with Al Jolson is all minstrel, and that should not. I was like that doesn't have any place, and so I think you have to go case by case to see what it is, and so in that particular case, I think Netflix was wrong.
Thank you.
Waverly.
Right.
Tyler, I loved you as the voice of that DVD in the one episode of Regular Show in 2015. Huge
Oh my
fan.
gosh, thank you.
Really
you
loved
so
your
much.
performance. Yeah, so great. Really top notch. I actually have the pleasure of being the student of Alex. He's so wonderful. And we were talking about the origination of kind of our passions. And when I was introduced to the digital estate planning episode of Community at such a young age, it led me to kind of just passionately fall in love with the gaming industry, and a passion that is still so emotionally resonant within myself that I'm actually pursuing a professional career in game development. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of the production of the more artistically complex episodes of Community, like the claymation ones and that video game one? And are there any episodes that spark kind of an emotional connection for you, like that episode did for me?
Well, yeah, I can tell you like video games since you're inside a Minecraft building right now. It looks like yeah, so those episodes came out of Dan's brain and a couple other writers' brains. And so when it came to that stuff, like the claymation and the animation and the video game, that is a billion hours of work that they have done before us silly actors show up. But they were planning those months in advance, and so I mean, as far as like emotional connection, yeah, I think the Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas was it still gets me, and it gets my wife, and it get my kids will refuse to admit that they were emotional about it. But that one really, yeah, that one has really always gets me. And Danny's character was one of the most unique on television and should have gotten 9 Emmys every year he was doing it. Especially with neurodivergence becoming so much more celebrated, and at the time it was not in 2009. And and I think that Dan has said that's his brain, and so that was even more emotional. So anyway, that's a long long answer, but I will say that NBC, Dan would just hide everything from NBC at the time because they thought the show was weird, and Dan would just not tell them what he was doing, and then by the time he got it on the air, it was too late, and they had no choice but to air it. Which at the time, like the president at that time did not like the show and eventually canceled it. And now it's like, oh, everyone loves it. I'm like, boy, at the time, at the end of every season, we'd be shooting the last episode. They'd be like, hey, can this be the season and series finale? They said that seasons 3, 4, 5 canceled, then 6. I mean, every time. So anyway, long answer.
Thank you so much. I'm a huge fan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Waverly.
Do you have time for a few more questions, or do you have to go right away? I know we're only slotted for 30.
My dogs are only attacking, I think, a neighbor, so that's great.
We'll do just.
Yeah,
do you mind cutting
shoot away? I guarantee my answers will be way too long.
No,
so that's great.
You're doing. Trust me, like you're doing God's work. So, Dan, do you mind going next?
Hope's work.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, Joel. My name's Dan Kellstrom. I'm a big fan of yours as well. My question is a little different than theirs. I saw you mentioned you were an athlete growing up, and that I saw that you actually walked on and played tight end at Washington. I was wondering if you did that just because you wanted to keep playing sports, you wanted something to occupy your mind, and at what point did you realize, like, all right, I need to fully commit to acting?
Well, I was not really committed to school, even though I was at university, and sports. Yes, I think it's part of my ADHD. All I wanted to do was chase balls like a golden retriever, that or try and make people laugh. So I had a bunch of friends on the football team. And it was more kind of like, I want to see if I can do this. I played not a ton in high school, but I just wanted to see if I could. It's not a smart way to go into a sport, but I was just like, I wonder if I can do this. And the answer is no, I really couldn't. But boy, I was really great at practicing and making the number one defense feel great about themselves. And so I was because I was on scout offense. So it wasn't like I went into it going like, I'm going to try to get to the NFL at all. It was more like, I wonder if I can hang. And which is not, again, I don't recommend, just to see if so 2 years later, I was like, I think I should leave because the acting stuff was really beginning to take up a wonderful amount of time. What it did teach me was how insanely dedicated and hardworking these guys were. It was like having this crazy full-time job while having also going to full-time school. And it really, to this day, I'm friends with a lot of them, and I look back on it very happily, even though I almost got killed every day at practice. Thank God I didn't bend a knee backwards. But for me, like, sports was a savior because it just worked off a lot of the insane ADHD energy I had all the time.
Thank you very much.
No, thanks, man.
Very much pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
Madison, do you want to go next?
Hi, Joel. I'm Madison, big fan. Also from New Jersey. I know you were only there a little bit, but it's always nice to see it mentioned. But
Here in Philadelphia or New York?
Jersey, New York. I'm
Okay.
I'm right in the middle. So people who say Central Jersey isn't real are lying. But anyway.
Good.
So, with a lot of sitcoms, like they all kind of have their like iconic tradition, I guess. Like New Girl's got the Thanksgiving episodes, Brooklyn Nine-Nine have the Halloween heist, and of course, Community has the paintball episodes. And I was just wondering if you had a favorite from that, if you had like a favorite memory or anything. Just yeah.
Well, those were so much fun. And because I guess the memory is that I got to be an action hero for 20 minutes. And that was always a dream come true. And I couldn't believe, and so we got to, we all would look, even though it was crazy hours and all the sets got ruined because the paintballs degraded and made the set walls rot. So the whole sets had to be re-put up. We didn't know that at the time. But that those were, yeah, you got to, I couldn't, it was one of those things where I was just like, I can't believe my good fortune, how we got here. And because the show started out as this study group and then just, then we were in multiple timelines. We were in Chicken Fingers Mafia. That was really fun to do. But I think just getting to be an action hero, and then we did it over and over again. I was like, this is so much fun. And I couldn't believe, again, I would come home from work and I was like, you're not going to believe this, hon. And so anyway, that's a very long explanation to say, it would, you work your butt off, and then once in a while it starts working and you're like, oh, this is what all the work was for. And so it was just great times.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you.
Thanks. Nice to meet you, Madison. Go sports teams of yours.
Cecilia, would you like to ask the next question?
Yeah. Hi, Joel. I'm Cecilia.
Hey.
I am curious because you've been in the industry for so long, what your take is on a different role, or maybe a role in the industry that you didn't know existed before entering it, that you would either be interested in pursuing or just maybe in a different life would have sought out.
Oh man, I have this very strange, well, if I ever put out a motivational speaker book, it'll be called Just Agree to Everything. And there's sometimes I know I'm like not, I was like, oh, I am not right for the part of that dancer. But I always wanted to do everything. And when people always like, well, what do you like better, hosting or acting or I don't know, hosting or acting or stand up? And I was like, why do I need to make a choice? I want to do it all. And I was looked at, now there's a helicopter circling. Welcome to Los Angeles, everybody. I kind of take it. I'm always like, I love working. And so right now I'm working on Yellow Jackets, and I didn't think that I would be doing a role like what I'm doing, but I so happy to do it. And so I kind of like, it's like surfing, I think, where you catch a wave. If the wave doesn't dump you on your ass, then you swim back out and you catch another wave, and you just keep on surfing. And that's how I've been going. And as far as like roles that I'd like, I mean, sure, I'd love to star in an Oscar-winning film. That would be great. But yeah, I don't know if that'll ever happen. Maybe, maybe not. But I'm probably not. But I'm like, I'm not going to stop trying. So yes,
Cool.
in
Thank
the
you.
meantime, yeah, I love all that. I love all that stuff. There's real. Let me just close this door. Hold on 1 second.
When he comes
Now it's
back,
clear.
Leia, you can go ahead.
All right, now I'm back. And he's back. Sorry.
Let me lower my hand. Hi, I'm Leia, and I was very excited when Dr. Damarjian was telling me about how we were going to be meeting with you to learn that your father was a dean of students at Loyola in Rome. My question's a bit not serious, but I was wondering if how actually being the child of a dean prepared you for a role in a show with such a prominent dean character.
Oh yeah, I just berated Jim Rash, just like I think I know a thing or two about deans. Yeah, well, I would say probably nothing. But My dad would be like, that's not how we did it. My dad was a dean of students, so as he would say, like, he was a student and a dean, and I guess he was 26 when he met my mom, who was 20. And so scandal, dean dating a student, and but he was a student dean. It didn't, but I'll say that my dad definitely prepared me in a lot of ways, because he is very funny and loved telling jokes, and I think probably I think he would even say that he wanted to be a painter, but to support his family, he kind of went into business. And so I have some of his paintings, and so I think he, like, as I started pursuing this silly, wonderful career, I think he admired it and was like, well, hope this works out. Boy, he always like, you better have a backup plan. And I don't know what that backup plan was going to be, but so yes, but in a way, he very much inspired me, as I was like, oh, my dad can be very silly in a great way. And I'm like, that seems like fun. I'm going to try to find somebody to pay me to do that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Good times.
Can I ask you one last personal question? This is like an old man question.
Here we go, Alex.
Sorry.
Yes, I would say every 4 years a colonoscopy is necessary.
All right. Thank you. All right, let's give it up for Joel. This was
Cologuard works too, so I think that less invasive.
And then if you have any questions, any answers about, dealing with, well, I'll get into that later. When I was researching your film career, I noticed there was so much overlap on timelines. And like, I have 2 young children, you have 2 sons. I teach a first full course load, and I work as a technical artist for Netflix. And I know there's some back and forth with Netflix and stuff, but so I find myself running on fumes constantly. I mean, you were working 16 hours a day in Community, you were doing commercials, you were doing this Talk Soup, and you still juggled the family life. With your wife, Sarah, and your 2 small children. Like, how did you manage all of that?
Well, I would show up at like 5 a.m. after working all night and throw a bag of money onto the floor and be like, see you later. And that was how great of a father I am. How would you, I don't really, after working on Almost Live, that sketch comedy show, like seeing Bill Nye and seeing this guy named Pat Cashman and a couple others, they had like 3 full-time jobs all the time. Same thing with the football team. And I don't really know how. I just basically never took a day off for 5 years. And now I find myself in a similar situation, which I never thought I'd be back in. But it's one of those things where it's just like, it's for me, not just keeping on going, and the work gives me energy. So yeah, so it's just that's kind of how it always was for me, even as a young person. So I really don't know how it all worked, but my kids still speak to me, and my wife agrees to be married to me, which is very commendable. And so yeah, you just I don't know. I guess the answer is you just do it. And so yeah, I squeezed and hugged my kids way more than I'm sure than now. I have to like pay them for hugs because they're teenagers. They're your ages. They're 16 and 19. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I'm not really sure, but we just kind of did it.
That was more helpful than you think. Thank you so much. Yeah. Any last questions? And if there isn't any, I'd like you to unmute your microphone and give Joel applause. So any last questions?
Applause?
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic. You don't have to do that.
I mean, you gotta, like, you gave up your time. You were so gracious, and
Oh no, I'm being well paid for this.
Well, I sent the $25 to Kara. I don't know if that was enough, but so.
Oh no, it was more than
Oh, Vince, did you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, I do. I see Leah also has a question, but
Vince, do it.
All right. My quick question. So, as an actor, you're a working independent artist. Can you talk about some of the logistic and kind of accounting considerations that students should think about as far as, what do you need to do for taxes, and what do you need to do for keeping your budget, and is there reporting SAG minimums that you have to, I don't know, any of that.
No, Vincent, this is a terrible answer. I have always been horrifically bad at that stuff, and knowing I was bad. So for taxes and stuff, my wife and I had an accountant. And it was the best money I ever spent because I surely could not do it. And staying within budget is, I mean, we all have friends that are maxed out of their credit cards, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem like the greatest idea. So I have, I've had a person that runs my corporation for years now, so I don't have to think about that stuff. So it's a terrible answer. Other than I know I'm bad at it, so it's money well spent to get somebody else to do it. That's my pretty crappy answer. If you need me to show you how to swing a baseball bat, I'm the man. I'll show you. Yeah, that's yeah. As far as, I mean, if you're an actor, it's always going to be tough, and unless then might be a day where it's not tough, where money's okay. But hey, I know a lot of actors that spent all the money they have, and I know an electrician that spends all the money he has. So, it's cross career of irresponsibility or total responsibility. There you
Would or
go.
not, we would have got financial advice, acting advice, life
That was
advice.
not financial advice. That was like, get somebody else to do it. There you go. Big advice.
Did someone else have a question before we close the loop? Hopefully.
Yeah,
oh,
but thank you guys. You guys are really thoughtful.
You're the best. Thank you, Joel. And hopefully we can get you to do this again if time and the solar systems align and all that stuff for you with all the things you have going on.
I think the Catholics would be upset for you with the solar system aligning.
All the Jesuits. All right, let's unmute our microphones and give Joel an applause, please.
Oh my God! Thank you. Yes,
we love you.
Takes me back to COVID, guys. All right, go watch Crime Scene Kitchen premiering next week on Fox.
Yes.
Your dog is really cute, by the way.
Yeah, he lost his eye back in December. It was heartbreaking. He's fine now. He's completely fine. I mean, other than missing an eye.
Well, he's cute. One eye or two or zero. Cute, regardless.
Good dog. I love him so much. He attacks people way too much, but he's the most affectionate dog I've ever had. And my wife is number one. He doesn't care about me when she's in the room. So anyway, and I have two other dogs who I really need to pay attention to more. Well, right on, you guys. Good luck to your Bears, even though they lost. And we'll see how the Bulls are this year. And boy, those White Sox, whoo, do they stink.
Forgot about the Cubs.
They're fine. They're fine. Oh yeah, you're right by Wrigley. So yeah. Well, cool, guys. This is one of the most wasted hours for any student in college. So I can't believe you guys got credit for something like this, listening to an actor babble. Very nice of you.
As long as the hour isn't one of my lectures, then.
Yeah, there you go. Well, cool, you guys. Nice to meet y'all.
All right. I'll
let's do it. Let's do it again.
Yes, please. I might bug Kara next semester if you don't mind.
Great.
And maybe I can interview your dad because I won his old job.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Good. You guys, just keep on acting. Don't stop. It's good times.
All right, I'll close out. Bye, everybody.
Right on. I'll see you all. I'll see you later. See ya. Thanks, guys.